Looks like you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo. Oh, it's just down the street.
Howdy everyone. With the reveal of content surrounding the new Huntress, the opera singer, I wanted to do a little analysis of her background, review her moveset, and share my overall thoughts on the character. First, let's dive into the background and lore implications of Sangria. This section will mostly be speculative, as the writing, like most IDV content, is very vague and confusing, but I'd like to share some research that hopefully contextualizes her story, design, and arrival in the manor. So let's start with reviewing her background story. So starting off, we presumably have Sangria's mother drinking a brew of some sort. I either think this is Sangria's mother utilizing her young blood to maintain her youth, which would make sense given Sangria's name means bloodletting, or drinking some sort of fertility potion that cursed Sangria's birth. Either way, it's some very messed up ritualistic practice that allegedly dooms Sangria's fate. Next, we see her suffer under the verbal and physical abuse of her father, whipping her into subordination. Her despondency as the moneymaker of her family ending only when hope and aspiration arrived as a lady in red, with a red V symbol marked between her eyebrows. Knocking on her dressing room door, the lady assumedly told Sangria of a ritual wherein sacrifice would rebirth success and power. Returning to the theater once more, Sangria burned the theater she was once a prisoner in to ashes, hearing screams of agony as her applause. So pretty messed up and very confusing. But I want to dive deeper into some of the story elements. First being the V mark the lady in red and later Sangria possess. This mark may be familiar to those who follow the zodiac as Aries or the Ram. This imagery is followed up by the mention of a shadowy ram present in the dressing room after the theater burned to a crisp. Furthermore, Sangria's abilities are conceptually termed tragodia, which is the combination of the Greek words tragos, meaning goat, and ode, meaning song, where we get the word tragedy, but literally refers to the song followers of the Greek god of wine, chaos, and theater Dionysus would sing during the ritualistic sacrifice of a ram. Now, identity is no stranger to animalistic gods, and it seems that this one may be a ram, taking similarity from the attributes of Dionysus. This cult may also literally just be the famed Maenads, female followers of Dionysus who gain supernatural abilities from their devotion. These being the same women in mythology who tore Orpheus limb from limb, so very fitting for identity. It's not lost on me that this imagery is similar to that of the demonic Baphomet as well, and deities of other cultures, so I'm interested in IDV divulging more about the theology behind many of their characters. Now here's how I personally read into the ritual. I believe that Sangria losing her voice more so reflects a lack of willpower at the hands of her father, who forbid her from communicating with the lady in red. Therefore, while locked away in a room by her father, Sangria conducted a self-sacrificial ritual, causing her rebirth as a shadow, allowing her to escape the room and reunite with the lady in red, seeking vengeance on her old stomping grounds. Alternatively, Sangria's voice loss could have been a literal karmic cost to gaining success after she summoned a god through ritualistic sacrifice of a lamb, a cost that caused her to seek vengeance against all, including the lady in red. Or, the loss of her voice was a natural loss, and an ironic lesson in the need for years of endurance training and practice in opera, rather than quick fleeting success from a ritual. Either way you read it, I really enjoyed this story element tying in a parallel to Oscar Wilde's The Nightingale and the Rose, because I think it's quite an interesting connection. The Nightingale and the Rose is a poem that tells of a nightingale who wishes to help a forlorn student confess his love to another with a red rose. While the student quickly gives up his search for a red rose, the nightingale, believing in true love, endures a long search, only to find that the red rose tree will only grow a rose, given that she sings her most beautiful songs all night, and lets the tree pierce her heart, allowing the blood to soak into the tree and grow a red rose. When the nightingale does this, the student finds the red rose and confesses to his love, only to be rejected over a promise of jewelry. In a way, we could say that Sangria is the nightingale, whose sacrifice of blood grew a beautiful red rose in the form of the lady in red, a stand-in for true love and artistic ambition that the world couldn't appreciate, but that's only my interpretation. The last point I want to touch on is the Bloody Queen's connection to the opera singer. As we know from the Bloody Queen's third character day letter, a book telling of a familiar tragic story, one reminiscent of Marie Antoinette, was to be adapted into an opera. We know that Mary Kreberg was a noblewoman from Austria, and interestingly enough, the opera house Sangria is seen to perform in looks suspiciously like the famed Hungarian state opera house. Do I think the lady in red is Mary? Highly unlikely, given the whole cultist vibe and her overall difference in aesthetic. However, did Sangria perform the Bloody Queen's tragic tale? Perhaps so, and I'd hope we get to hear it one day. Now, onto her abilities. Her main ability is her power to stealth into a shadow realm that manifests around objects. Obviously, this is going to perform well in small maps like Red Church, and less so in larger maps and open areas, with the only drawback being that she's confined there for at least a short duration. Next is Shadow Leap, wherein she can enter and exit the Shadow Realm with a dash and movement speed boost. Basically a more skill-involved version of Geisha. Now Shadow Dance, where she can teleport to her remnants left from the Shadow Leap, is like a cracked version of Photographer, and I'm very interested in seeing the strategy behind remnant placements, especially around chairs. Overall, she seems to have a terrifying chase, and perhaps a consequently small hitbox. Whether or not this will deter nerfs to her kit is to be seen, but I'm very excited to try out for myself when she arrives at the manor June 21st. Let me know what you think of this new character, her mysterious background, and her rather familiar abilities. Now, I've always been a Sangria defender ever since her reveal, so I'm going to be collecting my dice and inspiration accordingly. But thanks for watching, and happy hunting.